Welcome to the Q1 Buck Pull. I'm Tim Hart with Mike Big Buck Hoffner, where the bucks just keep coming in, and you can register your buck or doe on the Q1 Buck Pull and have a chance to win a CVA muzzleloader. We got dart and crossbows. We got the Yamaha Grizzly 350 ATV. You just got to get entered.
You know, we've made it simple. Even in our building, we've got our FFA chapter that's doing the registrations for us for the Q1 Buck Pull. And when I leave here today, I'm bringing them back some props because they're going to do a display window for us.
All right, today's show, we are going to be featuring CO Rich Nichols. He's going to be talking about blinds and baiting. We're at the Maple River State Game Area, so he's got some tips and techniques of things you can't do and things you can do.
Yeah, well, obviously you want to know what those tips are because you don't want to get yourself into trouble and definitely don't want to end up with a ticket.
We also have Beth Clute on with us. She's going to talk about fire-wise precautions to take when you're out in the woods. We've got our sponsor spotlight today. We got Belinda Whiteley. She shot a beautiful buck. A lot of people have seen it on Facebook and also on the website, so she's going to be on with us. And then Tony LaPratte and Chris Pearson are going to talk about browse lines and how to set your tree stand up and take advantage of that.
Well, I'll tell you what, and then we've got bucks too, Tim. In addition to that, bucks, and we're starting to hear more people seeing bigger bucks. It's an exciting time to be in the woods.
Stay with us. You're watching the Q1 Buck Pull. Firekeepers Casino and Hotel present the Q1 Buck Pull. Back here on the Q1 Buck Pull, when you talk about bucks, we've got them not only on our website, but we also post them on Facebook. So make sure that you go online and like us on Facebook, and you can see bucks and all kinds of, well, we got funny quips and quotes and things just to kind of make your day a little lighter.
Well, speaking of bucks, here's 3 for this segment. Let's start out with Caleb Brenning from South Mid-Michigan with a 7-pointer. The score is 32. Marshall Catter from Mid-Michigan with a 6-pointer. The score was 32.75 or 32 3/4. And Joe O'Malley from South Mid-Michigan brings in an 8-pointer. The score 36 3/4.
Blinds and baiting. Here's Conservation Officer Rich Nichols. I'm now with Conservation Officer Rich Nichols from Clinton County. Welcome to the Buck Pull.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Today we're going to talk about tree stands, we're going to talk about baiting, we're going to talk about tracking with dogs. And let's first of all start with tree stands. What are some of the rules and regs on public land with a tree stand?
Hunting public land with the tree stands, big things to remember. The tree stands can't be put out before September 1st and they have to be removed by March 1st of the following year. Additionally, a name and address has to be affixed to the tree stand, written legibly, that can be read from the ground. And screw-in steps or anything that penetrates the bark of a tree is not legal on public property. That includes any type of bow hanger use that can't penetrate the bark of a tree. Some additional things I recommend with the tree stand, it's not required by law, but I do encounter quite a bit of tree stand theft on state land. So I do recommend, in addition to the name and address being affixed to the tree stand, have it etched in your stand or ladder, climbing sticks, whatever you're using, and invest in a good cable lock and padlock system.
I think that's obviously key on anything like that, right?
Correct.
Well, try to prevent the theft of your tree stand. You get your spot, get all set up, go there, and no tree stand. So now let's talk about the baiting issue. What are some of the rules that people need to follow on baiting, not just on public land, but I'm sure it's similar to the private land baiting?
Correct. Baiting is allowed in Michigan, aside from the core TB area in the northern lower peninsula. Things to remember with baiting, your 2 gallons is a limit when it comes to bait. A lot of people have a misconception that's 5 gallons, but it is 2 gallons. Learn how much 2 gallons is. Think of it as half of a 5-gallon bucket or a little less. It's got to be spread out on the ground, a minimum 10 by 10 area. Make sure it's spread out, and it can only occur as early as October 1st, and then it must end by January 1st. So it's during the deer season. Can't start before October 1st. Mineral blocks are legal in Michigan, but they are part of the 2-gallon bait limit. And we do recommend that any mineral block is crushed up and spread on the ground.
So again, you're talking about spreading it out, just don't take and dump a pile.
Correct. Spin cast feeders are legal as long as they do not exceed the 2-gallon limit. But the big thing I see is people just dumping it on the ground, not spreading it out, and of course exceeding the 2-gallon limit.
All right, so we talk about the 2-gallon limit. All right, let's say I have, spread out some bait, and I've done it the right way, 2 gallons. All right, and I come back the next day, and some of it's gone. Can I put more out?
You can put more out as long as at one time it does not exceed the 2-gallon limit there at that hunting spot.
Okay. All right, so now let's talk about tracking with dogs. It's becoming more and more popular. People
Right.
tracking with dogs. Is that something we can do on public land?
You can do it on public land. The exception to public land is the dog can't bark when you're tracking it. There is a group of certified trackers, blood trackers they're called. You can locate your nearest blood tracker by going online and just doing a search for them. They're required to be certified through the department, and they will contact us when they're doing a track. The licensed hunter can accompany the blood tracker, and if they recover the deer, if it's mortally injured, mortally wounded, they can dispatch it, but the weapon can only be loaded at the point of kill.
And if you've got questions, people can just go online. A lot of these rules and regs right online, aren't they?
They're on the DNR website, or if they're out in the field and they need answer quickly, they can always contact the RAP hotline also to get an officer to either respond or maybe have a question answered.
All right, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Conservation Officer from Clinton County, Rich Nichols, has been our guest today with our DNR segment. I'm Tim Hart, and you're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. October is Fire Safety Month, and today we've got Beth Clute with us, and she's going to talk about fire-wise precautions.
Yeah, we took advantage of it even at the center this past week. We had Fire Prevention Week, and we had the local fire department came down, and every year they do this annually for us. They show us how to dispense a fire extinguisher. And, when you're out in the woods, speaking of being out in the woods, it doesn't cost that much to take that little fire extinguisher along with you, because it can make the difference or not. You put that fire out when it's small, or it ends up in being a raging inferno, and you don't want that to happen when you're out in the woods.
Not at all. Well, right now, though, we've got some bucks before we talk to Beth.
All right, let's start out with Riley Ballheimer from South Mid-Michigan with an 8-pointer. The score was 38 3/4. Erica Sperry from South Mid-Michigan brings in a 6-pointer. The score was 42.
And as we talk about, whenever you're out in the woods, be safe. Today we're talking about fire safety. Time now for our DNR update here on the Q1 Buck Poll. Today I'm talking with Beth Clute. She's an outreach specialist for the Forest Resources Division with the DNR. Beth, welcome to the Buck Poll.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to talk about fire safety because a lot of people, they're going out hunting. The last thing on their mind is fire safety because, we're going to have our campfire, we're going to cook outside, we're going to do all these things and just enjoy nature, and they forget about fire safety. Well, why is it important for the fire-wise precautions to be taken?
I think a lot of times people don't realize that some of the largest and most costly fires have taken place in the spring and fall. You picture summer, it's hot, it's dry, it's the perfect conditions. Yeah, fires can happen in the summer, but they often happen in spring and fall.
Okay, and why is that?
People are out cleaning up their yards. They're raking up leaves, they're burning them, and 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by human carelessness, and a third of those are from debris burning. Just something to keep in mind regardless of the time of year that you should be cautious when you're doing those activities.
What are some of the precautions that I could take then?
Just have a bucket of water nearby, have a shovel, make sure you have a source to drown that fire if it does get out of hand. Also, don't try to take care of it yourself if it does get out of hand. Call 911 immediately. There are volunteer fire departments. We work collaboratively with them if it does escape to a wildland fire, but we've had people seriously injured trying to take care of it themselves. If it's out of hand, just call immediately before it gets any worse.
Right, and again, I think action right away is probably one of the big keys, right?
Yep, definitely. You don't want to wait. Don't wait around.
All right, so unfortunately there's a fire going on. What are some of the issues and problems that the firefighters have in helping out?
Well, a lot of times it's finding the camp, or if it's out in a rural area, I've been to a lot of hunting camps where it's not clearly marked, doesn't have an address label.
Well, because they don't want anybody else to know.
Exactly, you don't want to know where your secret spots are.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we understand that, but if you had a fire or, heaven forbid, another emergency, somebody has a heart attack and a first responder needs to get out there, they need to be able to find you in order to help you. You also want to look at your access road. It might be big enough for your truck or a car to fit down, but doesn't necessarily mean that a fire truck can fit down that road. Look at branches that hang over. If fire truck can be up to 12 feet tall, you want to make sure that fire truck can get in there. Once it's in there, it needs to be able to maneuver around too. Firefighters aren't going to get in someplace where they can't get out of.
Right.
Also, if you have a bridge crossing that you need to get to your camp, fire trucks can weigh up to 40,000 pounds. Can your bridge support a 40,000 pound fire truck?
Right.
You need to make sure everything's structurally sound for these firefighters. And think about response times. That's a big thing. Fires in a rural area, usually staffed by volunteer firefighters, they're not sitting in a fire department somewhere. Take that into account. Anything that you can do in advance to set up your property for fire-wise safety, it's going to help those firefighters in the long run.
Well, and I think if you've got, a local little fire starting and, again, you go back down to fire extinguishers, I mean, that's really the simplest and basic thing that you can take out there. It doesn't need power. It doesn't need some other apparatus to make it work. So that's something simple, though.
Yep, definitely. And, if you have water at your camp, keep a hose hooked up. If you're going to have a campfire, it's an easy way to put out that fire if things get out of control. If you don't have necessarily have running water, have a bucket of water sitting nearby from your pump. Just make sure take those extra steps. It takes a few minutes, but it could save you a lot of heartache in the long run.
Right, and if you're cooking, obviously that is the cause of a lot of different fires. We've heard a lot of grease fires with the turkey fryers. There's things that you just got to be very careful of, and don't throw water on a grease fire, obviously.
No, be cautious of what you're doing, be cognizant of what you're doing, and just take the right precautions. All
right. And if we would like more information, are there some tips available through the DNR or through some other foundation?
Yep, DNR has a great website. It's michigan.gov/prevent wildfires. You'll find lots of campfire safety tips on there. You'll find some fire-wise safety information on there. It's a good place to start to get some more information.
One of my pet peeves, I will tell you, is that if you unfortunately smoke cigarettes, or a cigar, don't just throw it on the ground when you're done. And a lot of people do that, and not just in the woods, but all over the place.
Yep, and we've actually seen a decline in smoking-caused fires. Thank goodness. It's gone down in the past few years, but it's still a problem, still something to think about. A lot of times you just toss it and not even give it a second thought. And right conditions, right weather, it could cause a bigger problem.
Beth, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Beth Clute, an outreach specialist with the DNR, and we're talking about fire-wise precautions that you can take. There's more information on their website. I'm Tim Hart, and you're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. We got more coming up after this. Well, it's time to talk to a successful hunter out there. Belinda Whiteley came in. She's from the Coldwater area, shot a beautiful buck, and really had quite a story talking about her crossbow.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the crossbow hunting thing has become phenomenal. I've talked to more and more people that have really gotten into crossbow hunting, and it's brought a lot of hunters out in the field that don't want to do it the old-fashioned way, and what a great opportunity to increase hunting for our female population as well.
Here's how Belinda had success. We have a successful hunter with us. Belinda Whiteley is with us right now, and she shot a 13-pointer, a total score of 49.5 on the Q1 buck poll. Big, nice rack here, a lot of symmetry going on. Tell me about the hunt, Belinda.
About the hunt, it was opening day. Went out in the morning, kind of foggy, it wasn't too bad. Got out in a tree stand sitting there, did not see anything at all. Not even from the distance. Got down probably about noon. Went in, just kind of hung around, and then I wasn't going to go out. Winds were picking up. Decided that I didn't want to get busted, but I figured you can't bag a big buck if you're sitting at home. So I figured I'd just go back out there, take the day off work. So I went out, got back up in the tree stand, probably an hour into it. It's getting a little uncomfortable. Just haven't used to sitting there for so long. I was going to get on my phone, get on Facebook, and out of the corner of my eye, I seen something moving in the brush probably about 50 yards away. Realized that it was a nice buck, so I put my phone away, concentrated on the buck coming in. He didn't come out of any of the brush or anything, but he gave me that little window. I picked a window and pulled the trigger, and that's all it was.
All right, and you shot him with a crossbow?
With the crossbow, yep.
All right, what do you like most about shooting with a crossbow?
The crossbow accuracy, it's very little hold time. It took 10 minutes to finally get a good shot on this guy, so if I would have been in full draw, I would have been really shaky and probably would have missed the shot. So.
Well, and you're coming back off a little carpal tunnel surgery, so
Surgery,
pulling
yeah,
back a bow
so
is a little
it's-
different than
Yep, then
popping a trigger.
pulling that trigger.
Now, is this the biggest buck that you ever got?
Yes, this is the biggest buck that I've ever gotten. I got a 10-point last year, but it doesn't compare to this guy.
What do you like most about being in the outdoors?
Just being outside. I like to be out there observing nature as it is. I like the challenge of being there and not having, being busted by a doe or by a buck. I just like watching the wildlife.
Yeah, well, good deal. Well, you watched a big one come in, and she took it. Her husband's also a hunter, and right now, you've got the biggest buck in the household. Is that right?
I've got the biggest buck. Yep.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Belinda Whiteley with us here from Coldwater. Again, her total score of 49.5 with a 13-pointer on the Q1 buck pole. Well, that was a nice buck, but we have a lot of people that are sending us pictures and getting registered in the Q1 buck pole. Mike, you got some bucks today.
Yeah, I got some nice bucks. Let's start out with Logan Milliken from the Thumb with a 9-pointer. The score was 43 3/4. Madison Newton from North Mid-Michigan brings in a 10-pointer. The score was 43.81.
Well, if you want to have success out in the woods, maybe you need to take a look at some browse lines. Here's Tony LaPratte and Chris Pearson.
What I'd like to talk about is browse and how important browse is. And a lot of people think that if they put a food plot in, they don't got to worry about browse. Browse goes hand in hand with food plots. Guys, deer are not domestic animals. Now you take a cow, a goat, it don't matter. They start eating on a plant, they'll eat every leaf off of a briar, then they take the stalk and start eating on it, and then they'll literally try to pull the root out of the ground and eat the root. Deer are meant to eat and move. So a deer will come up to like this multiflora rose, which they love, and they're going to eat 4 or 5 leaves off of it, nibble on the stem a little bit, and then they're going to take a couple of steps, and she's going to keep on moving. Bucks and does both like to eat and move. Guys, you take a park effect woods that you have no understorage, and you look at a deer and use your own watch, a deer comes in, and within a matter of a couple of minutes, that deer is out of that area because there's nothing slowing them up. In our woods, we make sure we have a lot of browse, and the deer 20 minutes later is still in sight because it's nibbling and feeding and moving along, and that's what we are trying to do. And there's many other ways to enhance browse. Chris, why don't you explain some of the things we do?
Guys, what you do to enhance your browse and basically everything is it's natural. Basically everybody would just go in and try to create browse. We need to actually go in and fertilize this browse. What you're going to do then is naturally increase the protein in your browse. You're going to basically create more browse by doing this at the same time, and then what you're doing is creating a healthier deer, and you're creating everything that the deer needs to move in and feel safe.
Some browse are better than other, guys. You gotta remember they love maples, elms. They love all the briars are high on their priority list. And Chris, why don't you explain about the fertilization that we do and about what we put on?
Well, a lot of things we do basically to incorporate it to make the browse better and everything is we'll actually walk through our browse with a hand fertilizer and broadcast anywhere from 19 to 13, like 100 pounds. And you can naturally increase your protein level in the browse and everything. Like Tony was talking about, raspberries, thorns, the multiflora rose that we have here, everything that nobody thinks is good is a very good food source. You basically help that food source with fertilizer, and you're going to basically increase your natural protein growth and everything else with that.
And the bottom line is, what are we trying to do? We're trying to keep deer on our property. A property that has browse will keep the deer happy, and that's where they want to live compared to a property that does not have browse. So it's just a good hunting tactics. And that's your tip of the week from Tony LaPratte for Q1 Buck Pole.
You know, always great information from Tony and Chris, because those two guys study the woods, and they really are stewards of the outdoors. Hey, if you're looking for some hunting or just some recreation land, here's a great property from Trophy Class Real Estate, Dan Hoffman. 320 acres of vacant land in Reed City. Vast variety of terrain with rolling hills, ravines, old gravel pit, 2-track with loops, a variety of hardwoods, pines, maples, excellent whitetail, deer, and turkey hunting. And I tell you what, thousands of acres of state land border it, so you know that you're going to have all kinds of wildlife on this property. All right, for Big Buck Hoffner, I'm Tim Hart. Thanks for being with us this week on Q1 Buck Poll. Remember to go online or check us out on Facebook. And whenever you're out in the woods, be safe.
I don't know what to say to that, Tim.
Well, speaking of bucks, on Facebook, I
didn't know
got
where you were
bucks
going.
here.
I didn't know where you were going. So
Okay, I'm sorry, folks. First timer, Mike Hoffman.